Kids don't forget.
Kids don't forget.
You kids don't forget.
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 Kids don't forget. Kids don't forget.
Shawn, what's up, baby?
Nothing much. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy that you're here. Happy that you could make it out today. So,
It's good to be here.
did I pronounce your name correctly? Is it Shawn?
Yes,
Let's hear you say it.
Shawn.
Has your name ever been mispronounced in the history of your life?
Not that I know of, no.
Nobody's accidentally
me.
called you like
Shawn.
Shane?
No, Shawn.
Shawn, good.
Last name, somehow people get Thomas instead of Thompson.
Right.
But Shawn is always Shawn Thompson. That's
Okay.
pretty simple.
You've never experienced the agony that I've had to endure my entire life.
No.
Like
No.
my name is most mispronounced Khalid. Like people think my name is Khalid, but it's not Khalid, it's Khalid.
Yes.
But I get Khalid, Khalil, Keenan, Kylie, Kaylee. Like any way you can Cowley, any way you can mispronounce it. So Shawn, nobody's ever mispronounced that.
No, it's pretty
Have you
easy.
met a lot of other Shawns in your life growing up?
Yes, a lot.
A lot.
Different spelling, same pronunciation.
What is your spelling?
SHAWN.
Okay. Did you have any nicknames growing up?
Shawnee.
Shawnee. Okay.
Probably the only nickname.
Who would have called you that? Who would have known to call you that?
Shawnee was a childhood nickname.
Okay.
Nobody, unless you were family or close family friend, you wouldn't know to call me Shawnee. Like even my close friends growing up, it wasn't Shawnee.
Okay.
Pretty much it was only family, and
You also said some of your old coaches used to call you that.
coaches. So older family friends, usually my for example, my first ever legit job with benefits and everything was through a family friend,
Okay.
Coach Bird, and he called me Shawnee for like the first few weeks at work.
Right.
And then finally, I guess somebody commented on it. He said, he brought me aside, like, hey, do you mind if he pulled me aside, do you mind if I call you Shawnee? Which do you prefer, Shawn or Shawnee? I'm like, it don't matter, but Shawn is good. so it don't really make me no difference. But, like, usually it's the older my coaches
Right.
from who knew me since I was young.
Okay.
And family.
But nobody your age really calls you that.
Nobody my age. And nobody anymore.
Okay.
Unless an older cousin will pop up. I have older cousins who, when they come around, I'm still Shawnee.
Got it.
And, that's cool.
So when they come around, speaking of when they come around, where are you from?
I'm from Camden, New Jersey.
Okay. Any particular section?
The Fairview section.
The Fairview section. Any
Yes.
particular block?
I'm from Denfield Street.
Denfield Street.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you describe Denfield Street and Fairview like growing up?
Denfield growing up, describing it now, when I was growing up, I would think like family street. We had our foolishness out there. We had a lot of activity. It seemed like during the day everything was cool, but at night, you had to really, you had to know what was going on. It was, a lot of drug activity, stuff like that.
Okay.
But back then I didn't really think anything of it. Now looking at it from an adult, it's like, it's pretty much, if you're not involved in nothing, most you catching is something random.
Right.
Some random danger that you might get in that's sporadic, but nobody bothers you. Like I don't, I ride through there now. I don't know anybody out there.
Right.
But I don't feel unsafe.
Okay.
But I also, I'm not going to go through a jog through my old block just for the heck of it. You know what I mean?
So given that you grew up there and you pretty much know that area very well, would you raise your kids there? Would you raise your kids on Denfield Street?
I would not raise my kids on Denfield Street.
Okay.
And I guess for a few different reasons. My biggest reason is just property, like location, space. Like we had a corner property, so we had a yard.
Okay.
We had it was a 3-bedroom house, 2-bedroom with a den, and it was a lot of us. But even with my family is smaller, it's just I wouldn't raise them mainly because I don't know, just growing up and seeing things different. For example, we take them back when I go now. We still own the house and rent it out.
Okay.
And the kids come and help me clean up and prepare the house, paint, whatever. And I can just see in their face like they're confused by the activity what's going on. And I'm not talking like drug activity. I'm just talking the kids, running and talking different, and the cursing.
Right.
It's just a different atmosphere.
Okay.
Like where we're at now is where we're at specifically, is more quiet. But so I wouldn't do it because I don't have to. But
right.
There were a lot of benefits to
growing up on
Denfield. Yeah.
Like what?
Like getting to see real life.
Right. I can tell everybody when you grow up in the hood on one block, there's so many personalities.
Yeah, it's so many personalities, and you kind of learn how to move through life better. You learn how to you just learn how to deal better with life situations. You can't walk around talking and acting a certain way and without thinking you're gonna get challenged.
Right.
On talking foolishness and stuff like that. But for the most part,
So from your point of view, growing up in the hood is kind of like a gift and a curse at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to move next door to you. You have no control over that. Like, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, well, even like now, like, I don't know who's going to move next door to me now, but the chance of it being, like, back in the day, like, growing up in Camden, we just happen to have a senior neighbor from, I think, my whole time living there.
Okay.
But anybody can move in next to you. It could get turned into a drug spot just like that.
Yep.
But not particularly on our street.
Okay.
Our street was, we had a lot of older people who owned. It was,
So, were you an only child?
I was not an only child.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
I have 9 brothers and sisters.
So you are the opposite of an
I'm the
only
opposite
child.
of an only child.
Are you the oldest, the youngest? Where are you?
I'm the third. I have 2 older brothers.
Okay, so you're third. So
yes.
you're not even the middle child.
I'm not even the middle.
I don't even know how you would describe yourself. You're not the oldest, you're not the youngest, you're not the middle child.
I think I got to be the middle child for a short period.
Yeah, you were the middle child at some point.
Yeah, at some point. But yeah.
So 9 siblings. How many brothers?
9 siblings. I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters.
Okay. Was there ever a point where all 10 of you lived in the house together?
I think there was. I'm pretty sure the youngest was born in 95.
Okay, so you were, what,
And
15?
So I was 15, and that's when my oldest brother was probably either there or in between college. So close enough. It was like,
Okay.
I want to say he might have been back and forth home. He might have been away to school by then.
So
Yeah.
let's break it down. If you're 15 years old, let's try to name your siblings. So we talked about this. So if you're 15, that means you have a 20-year-old brother.
Yes.
He's the oldest.
Yep.
You have you're 15. You have a 17-year-old brother who's 2 years older than you.
So if I'm 15, I have
20.
I'm gonna stay close to. So I have 16.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah,
then-
you're right. And he's 19.
And
your
then I'll
oldest.
say the oldest is probably 18 or 19, depending on when. But he's.
Okay.
I remember his 4 years apart because 7-11, and because when I was a freshman, he was a senior.
Right. So we got to do 16. Let's pretend you're 16 years old.
So
If you're
16.
16, your oldest brother is 20. You got a brother who's right over you who's 17.
Yes.
You got a brother who's right under you who's 14.
Yes.
Then you have a sister who's right under him
Yep.
who's 12. And then
Who's 13?
okay, 13.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're a year apart.
Yeah.
Okay. You have another sister who's right under her. So if she's 13, then your next sister is 11.
Yes.
Okay. And
They're
that's
gonna
the top
They're gonna
6.
see this and possibly see how wrong I am. I'm right on how many of us there are. But
Right,
yeah, but
right.
that's the top 6.
The top 6.
Yeah.
So you guys were together for a while, and then in the end, your parents had 4 more kids, 1 set of twins.
Yes.
Right. So when you were 16, they would be 4, 2, and the twins would be 1.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
You got to tell us, what was that like growing up in a house with 9 siblings?
I mean, honestly, it was fun.
Really?
Like, I feel bad for only, for people who grew up the only child.
Right.
Never had to look for anybody to go outside to play. Never needed somebody to play catch with. Never needed you can't walk to the store by yourself. Somebody got to walk with you. Oh, I got multiple choices. Oh, you don't want to go? Well, you go.
Right.
So it's fun, constant fun.
Okay.
Constant excitement. Like,
now let's talk about the oldest 4. 20, 17, 16, and 14. So that's 3 brothers you had who were always with you.
yes.
So am I to guess that growing up in the hood, you had no problems?
We didn't. Mainly because we were cool. We didn't have those issues.
Right.
We weren't really into anything, but just growing up in the hood, just because you get into things, and we still never had those issues. Like, we moved together.
Right.
Any issues, if you got a problem with one of us, it's a family thing. So
Right,
we didn't really have we didn't get into that many big family conflicts. We never had that many issues, but we always rolled deep.
Right. Right. Automatically.
Yeah, it was some funny neighborhood instances where I really remember, like, I had 2 older brothers where I remember, like, gosh, like, I feel bad for y'all with no family. Like, where everybody around you start brawling.
Right.
We playing like a football game. Everybody around you start brawling, and nobody's touching any of my brothers, and we're just walking home. And we just, like, reach for each other, like, where's he? And then we start walking home, and then,
Right.
And you didn't leave, you don't feel like you left your team hanging because it was a fight. The game was over. I actually remember this day, but that was kind of like one of the instances where, like, brothers was like, oh, we good. Let's just walk.
You never think about it from the viewpoint of your parents. Your mother, in particular, had to feel so good when you guys left the house. Like, she knew all 4 of you were together.
Yeah, I would think so.
She's not worried about her. Like you said, an only child, a mom always worried about her son. She knows all 4 of you are together.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
And we usually couldn't go anywhere unless
somebody
was with us. So,
okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
So.
Now, being that the oldest 4 are all boys, were you personally very protective of your little sisters?
Yes, but I think just naturally, like, I mean, our sister. First of all, our sister, the first girl,
Right.
was following 4 boys, so she was tough.
Okay.
So the problem with her was she's getting in our friend's face, like she's one of us.
Right.
But she was tough, so, like, we was protective of her, but we didn't really have too many issues. Like, I gotta say, like, and not because it's, obviously me and my family, but we didn't really have those issues. Like, we didn't try people. We didn't flex because we had numbers or size.
Right. Like some families in Camden do.
It's families out there that, as soon as something happened, their family is showing up at the school deep.
Right. Exactly.
We didn't really have those issues. So we kind of moved a certain way and didn't run into those problems. But as far as, like, our sisters, I think people pretty much knew. Like, you didn't have to, that's not really a something you had to announce. Like,
right.
And that's a forever thing. That's you always protective of your sisters.
Now, that's crazy. So you said you were never lonely, never bored, never knocked on the door to have somebody come outside and play.
Yeah, I don't ever recall me having to go look for anybody. Like, you bored, I need somebody. If we was gathering people, it was to fill up a team to go play football. Like, gathering up people to go play football down at the middle school, something like that. But other than that, like, I didn't have to knock on the door to find somebody to ride a bike with.
Right.
Or shoot a basketball with or play catch with. So
just naturally had it.
We just had it. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy because it's not a lot of people who can say, I have 9 siblings.
Yeah.
Okay. So am I to assume that you grew up with both parents?
Yes.
The whole time?
The whole time. Both parents.
Extreme rarity. And you
That's
mentioned
usually the
that
first question.
the first question is, do all 10 of you have the same mom and dad?
Yes.
Which is true.
Yes.
All 10 of you have the same mom and dad.
Yes.
That's another huge rarity.
Yes.
You might have a mom who has 3 kids and like 2 of them don't have the same dad. So that is banana, or the same mom.
Yeah.
So that's another rarity growing up in the hood, where all 10 of you, first of all, it's 10 of you.
Yeah,
that's rare.
That's a rarity in itself.
In itself. And then second of all 10 of you have the same mom and dad.
Yes.
That's bananas.
Yes.
In your personal opinion, being that you grew up in the hood, pretty rough neighborhood, do you think that because you grew up with both parents that you had like some sort of advantage at life over like some of your friends who they live with their grandmom or just their mom, or maybe in rare instances just their dad?
Well, I definitely think that we had an advantage because of our specific parents. Not that they were together, not that they were both at the household, but that they were, that they worked together, and that it wasn't a violent household. It wasn't just because we have 2 parents, that's not what I think made it.
Okay.
I think the fact that our 2 parents worked together well and, had what we saw was a happy relationship, a healthy relationship. They were always in sync with our discipline. Because 2 parents could go bad.
Right. You could in a lot of cases, you got the drunk dad beating the crap out of your mom, and you're witnessing that, and there's nothing you can do because you're a little kid.
Yeah. So,
right?
So I think we were fortunate because our parents are the way they were.
They didn't have a toxic relationship.
They didn't have a toxic relationship. They, you couldn't use even 2 parents. You couldn't use mom to get something you didn't want. You couldn't go to like, oh, dad said no, let me go to mom. Like you knew right away. If you go and ask one and they found out you already asked, you was in trouble. So little stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, as far as
So being that it was 10 of y'all, do you feel like you were able to have a personal relationship with both of them?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. What was you pick who you want to start with? What was your relationship with either your mom or your dad?
Well, it's funny. So I guess my mom was. I'll start with my mom because it was like.
What's her name?
My mom's name is Esther.
Shout out to Miss Esther.
So everybody somehow always got their time. Like mine is kind of funny. So we took a lot of family rides, and I'm gonna do both of them first.
Okay.
And whenever we rode around, we had our van, we had our high top, or we had whatever kind of van. Always had a station wagon too, but always a big car, and still never enough seats. And I always somehow was able to get my seat on my knees in between the driver and the passenger seat. Okay. So I got my personal parent, hanging with my mom and dad, even though it's a whole car full of people.
Right.
And we're riding like maybe the
you were always in the gap.
I'm on my knees riding for an hour just so I can have like my time. Okay. And I don't know how that became my spot. Nobody ever tried to, that I recall. Like I'm sure at some point we might have been beefing in the house and it took to the car and they tried to take my spot. Right. But nobody ever like bothered me about it. That was like my spot. Okay. And I think now like how patient they could have been, because like me now, if my kids are leaning up on the right. And you're talking when you look, like I was right there. I'm handing out stuff, snacks or whatever. I'm like, so that was the joint thing that I can remember. But like individually, my mom, like her, she was funny. Like I think our thing was her support for my art and like just my craft or whatever I was doing at the time. Okay. When I was younger, I started building furniture and stuff like that. Really? And what's crazy is I would build it in the house, in the kitchen. So we got a, kitchen, that dining room that flows right into the kitchen. Right. And I'm talking sawing, cutting, routing in the house. Nobody, she never stopped me. I would clean up when I was done, but I'm cleaning up at whatever age I was, up until my, maybe 20s. But you ain't cleaning that sawdust. I was not cleaning the way, like now if I cut something in the house, in my house, I'm mad. Like, oh, I do not want to. So we had a connection where she really just let me go and learn and do what I wanted and supported me in it.
What was
And I
your-
would come back and she would clean up, probably a more deeper clean because I
Right,
probably had
right.
dust on her pots and she never. I was an adult when I brought it up
Wow.
in my own house. Like, Mom, like, did you used to clean up after me? Because I cut one piece of wood in the house now, and I got to wash all the dishes again. So like, what was you doing? And she just laughed like, yeah. You would sweep up I would sweep the floor and get the obvious stuff.
Right.
So yeah, so that was my mom's, and then
She appreciated your effort.
yeah,
Gotta ask, what was your favorite piece of furniture that you built?
my favorite piece of furniture that I built. My favorite piece of furniture was probably a bunk bed set.
You built the bunk bed set?
Yeah, now I built 2 bunk bed sets to go into the bedrooms were small.
Okay.
And us growing up, I mean, they were, I guess, normal size, but it's small when you start crowding people in.
Right.
So we've had 2 bunk bed sets in those rooms, but you had to put them in an L, and I don't mean an L with space. I mean where somebody only got this much room, half the L to get out the bed,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So when I got older, I don't remember what made them, do it, if I brought it up or they did. But, my dad, we went and got some type of wood, maple or mahogany, something nice.
Okay.
I remember going to the lumber store, and I made a bunk bed set, routed it out, made everything fit nice, tightened it up. We went Joann Fabrics, got cushions and custom, so it was thin.
Right.
So it fit in a room. It was probably uncomfortable for them, but nobody ever complained. So.
Incredible.
But yeah, that was
Incredible.
probably my favorite piece of furniture.
All right,
I never
so-
even would have thought of that.
On to your dad. So, what was your relationship like with him?
So with my dad, same thing. My dad.
What's his name?
Arthur.
Shout out to Mr. Art.
So, good relationship. I mean, it's funny. More of a relationship as an adult, because when you're younger, like you don't even know what to say. My dad's
That presence where
the presence, the dominant role in the house. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about when you talk to him. You got to, but I don't know. It's funny. So our connection when we were younger was probably just. I remember just like the sports, just him. He would be at all of our games because he was coaching. But he wouldn't holler at you at the game, wouldn't say anything to you at the game. If you messed up or did something wrong afterwards, he would just ask like questions like, "Oh, what'd you do on this play? Or did you see that?" Or I remember my senior year in high school, an interception that I probably should have had, but I knocked it down. And he said, "Well, why'd you knock it down? Why didn't you try to catch it?" But he's a coach,
right.
so he could have probably went deeper and well, but he never did that. So like he did the sports thing on a real cool level, and just his whole personality has always been more by example and by just when he by the time he has to say something to you, you messed up.
Okay.
The constant talking, like he just a talker.
Okay.
Talk to you about things probably the same way I talk to my kids. I try to imitate that because I remember all his conversations now, but I remember him as an adult. After it's too late. My
Right.
first car, he said, not my first car, but one of my car purchases that he actually, helped me, he co-signed with, probably the worst car purchase of my life. And he told me as we were getting it, like, you probably shouldn't do this. If you get yourself a pickup truck, you'll be buying a new car.
Okay.
But, I didn't do it. And he talked me through it, and he still helped me with the repairs that was killing my wallet. And, and he just, that was his thing. Just, I'll tell you, and then we'll kind of figure it out as we go.
Experience is the best teacher.
Experience is the best teacher. Yeah.
So you mentioned that, did you guys play sports your whole life?
Yes, pretty
Now,
much.
what sports? Interception, so football.
Played football, probably played football and baseball. Football since I was, I guess, 7 or 8.
Okay.
And baseball, probably the same. I still remember when they started the youth baseball in Centerville.
So was sports a requirement in your house? Like, were you forced to?
No.
You had the option to not play if
Had
you
the
didn't
option
want
to not play.
Okay.
Which is
okay.
the other, my first year of football, my dad is the coach. He's like, you know, he won't be the coach for that for that level.
Okay.
He would say I'm probably gonna be off with the pounds, but he was the coach for the older kids.
Okay.
And this is my first year coming in.
Oh, so it went by weight.
It went by weight,
Okay.
weight and age.
Weight and age. Okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
always capped with weight.
Okay.
So and I didn't want to play. I don't really remember why or what the scenario, and I just didn't want to play. And he didn't make me.
Okay.
But my dad coached. So guess where I was every day? Now I'm out
You were
there.
out there anyway.
I'm out there watching kids that I go to school with,
Right.
you know, and I can't play. Because I waited too late. I missed the registration. I missed everything. And
Right.
So I didn't play my first year. I just watched. Running around, you know, bored in the van, waiting for his practice to be over. Because, you know, you wasn't going to stay home and all my
Right.
other, you know, my two older brothers, Patrick, the younger brother right under me,
Okay.
wasn't old enough to play yet. And the two older brothers were pretty much out there. So you would have thought I would have jumped out there because of them. I didn't, but it wasn't a requirement.
Okay.
You know, he didn't really push it.
So speaking of pushing, you ultimately became a parent.
Mm-hmm.
How many beautiful seeds do you have?
3.
So you had 3. Okay. And what
Yes.
are their age ranges now?
20,
20,
13, and 10.
20, 13, and 10. Okay. You
Yes.
got a healthy mix.
Yeah.
One who just finished being a teenager, killing you, and 2 new teenagers coming up.
Yes.
So, given everything that you know about your parents, dually and singularly,
Mm-hmm.
everything, you know how they raised you because you were there.
Mhm.
You know how they raised your other siblings because you saw it. What would you say are some similarities and differences between your parents' parenting styles and yours?
I guess the similarities, pretty easy. I talk a lot.
Okay.
I try to be stern. You can remember your parents, like when you say come home and you're not home, there were consequences. So like I try to make sure I follow up. I try to, you know, make sure when I discipline them that they understand why. Like the biggest thing I remember from my parents is if you got disciplined to the point to where you got physically had hands put on you,
Right.
you lied, cheated, stole something, you did something that they wanted to, you know, it was that serious. But afterwards it was always the talk. It was always that session where, you know, everybody's tears, you wiping up the tears and let's talk, like let's talk about what happened type thing. So I try to make sure I do that, and you know, I think they did a good job of making sure we were disciplined and knew why without going too far. But there are things that they did that I won't do, like, you know, certain, you know, I don't know what we used to do as boys running crazy. That would, you know, take my mom to the level of screaming. And,
Over the edge.
You know, she's my mom, like probably the nicest, most, you know, calm, patient person in the world.
Right.
But like we would drive her crazy apparently to the point, you know, when it was time for a beat, and it had to be something that really went wrong, you know, like the beatings you would get, you know, hit with something, or if you messed up that bad. I remember waiting for my dad to come home. And that's when you really messed up.
Those are the worst.
When you had to wait, and you knew that belt that he was about to take off was for you.
Right.
Like stuff like that, I didn't have to do. But I think my house it's a different setup. Like different setup, different world. I have less kids.
Right.
I have, you know, I think my parents would you know, I think them in this day and age would probably see, like, we were listening and we heard you.
Right.
You know, I never got a beating, or I didn't get that many beatings.
Okay.
But but I got them. I never got a beating and was confused afterwards, like, oh, that was foolishness. I didn't even do nothing.
Right.
No, you pretty much knew. And you knew when you got caught that it was going to happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the biggest difference is, I guess, the level that I'll go. I try to, and it might not be as effective, or maybe it is, but it's
So
just something.
you didn't all the way become your parents. You're a percentage of your parents.
Yeah, I think I actually, my goal was and is to be a percentage of my parents. Yeah.
Because some people go the other way. Like, I don't want to be anything like my parents. And some people physically, and we know this cliche term, you become your parents.
Yeah.
Like, I became my father. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, sometimes I catch myself like with lack of patience. Like, my parents both had like this patience. Okay. Like, my dad, like, if you get in trouble and you got to stand next to him and he's occupied with something, you just stand there and wait until he's ready to deal with you. And that can be 5 minutes or it can be 15 or 20.
Right.
And he just had a patience where everything's calmed down and you stand there and you're just thinking the whole time. So stuff like that, like, once you make somebody stand there and worry about what the punishment's going to be,
right,
you pretty much, you handled it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of how those are the things I really remember growing up.
So looking back, let's talk about this for a second. Your parents had 10 kids. You have 3.
Mm-hmm.
Do you respect them more as parents now?
Oh yeah. Like,
there's 7 more kids than you do. Do you think you would be able to have 10 kids?
I think I could.
You could? Okay.
I think so. So I'm married. So It's a joint thing.
Okay.
My wife was very clear on the number, not the number per se, but that's not what, that's a lot.
Right.
She would say, I got 2 hands. I don't want more than 2 kids. So, like, yes, but me, like, honestly, it was such a fun childhood.
Okay.
That if I could financially,
right,
and because that's the respect. The respect obviously is like through the roof and on every aspect of them raising me. And not because they're my parents, because I'm an adult and I see what they went through, what they provided, and like I grew up never understanding, never thinking about money, never thinking about are the lights going to get cut off, never thinking about payments on anything.
Never missed a meal.
Never missed a meal. You know what I mean? So those are the things that I really I respect about my parents, that I try to do, and me and my wife consciously try and do it now. Like, we'll be having a conversation, and then we'll kind of like, let it be a mystery to kids that, when they get older, they'll know they got bills.
Right.
But when they're 13 and 10, we're not talking about, we can't do this because we got to pay that light bill.
And that's a luxury for them. Like, look where you grew up.
Yeah.
It's kids who had to help chip in. Yeah. With the bills, right?
I know. I mean, a lot of my friends, I remember, when they was going to work, it wasn't just for them. It was for their house.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So that was a luxury, and I think it's something that made me just mentally, like, let me be a kid. It let me, that wasn't a worry I had. They probably thought, like I'm thinking now, you're going to have years to worry about this.
Right.
I'm going to take it off your plate as long as I can. You know what I mean?
Okay.
My oldest is 20, and, he's got, it's different for him. You got a car, you need gas. Yeah, you need a job. Like, that, I'm not going to let you see, or let you deal with smoke and mirrors that, the car's just going to run on air.
Right.
No, you need a job. You need to figure out money-wise, how you're going to do those things. So, but he's older, so we talk about credit. We talk about, bank accounts and money.
Okay.
Because he needs to know, but budgeting and stuff like that.
If we stick your 20-year-old son, it's never easy to speak for other people, but based on what you know, if we put your 20-year-old son in your 16-year-old body, when he was 16, would he have been able to handle your life?
I'd hate to say no, but it's kind of like knowing my son and knowing me understanding the rules of the hood, the rules of growing up in the city.
Right.
Like, he don't get it. He wouldn't know,
Right. Sticking him in an environment, he not.
Their trash talk and our trash talk when we, growing up in the city in Camden was different.
Right.
Like, I don't know if he could take it like feelings wise. I remember, like getting cracked on. Everybody got cracked on. It happened to everybody. You know, no matter who you were, the toughest guy or the smallest guy.
Right.
But if you're not familiar with it, you take that stuff to heart. You don't know how to laugh
We
it
all
off.
saw it. You saw some people take it to heart.
You saw people take it to heart.
Right.
Yeah. So like even people we grew up with couldn't live in their own 16-year-old body. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So I think he would struggle. Just because the obvious, like, it's a different.
He didn't grow up in the world you grew up in.
It's not the same world. Like I said, when we take them back, when I take him to the house, and he helps me a lot on the house.
Okay.
On the house we grew up in, and he just looks. His eyes, I can just tell when he looks around. He don't got a clue what's going on.
Right.
And he'll ask me like, you see that guy? And I'm like, number one, stop staring. Like,
that's A. Stop gritting on
it. Stop staring. And two, like, yeah, well, let's go in the house. Like, yeah, that guy, he might be on something, or he might be, somebody outside, looking kind of crazy, skitzing or whatever they doing.
Right.
But, people outside, argument about to happen. He not smart enough to walk away or be on guard for what's about to happen.
Right.
He too zoned in and probably pull out his phone or something like that. Like that ain't us.
Not the time and place. Right. Right.
So,
well, speaking of the world you grew up in and letting kids be kids, do you remember all the schools that you went to growing up?
Yes.
All right, kindergarten. Let's go.
So kindergarten, H.B. Wilson.
Okay, kindergarten through
first grade, half of first grade.
Half of first grade, okay.
So halfway through first grade, I think one of my older brothers,
okay,
not me, got accepted into the CHIPS program.
Okay, which stood for Camden Honors Intermediate Program for Scholars.
Yes,
it was basically all the smart kids. They rounded up all the smart kids in the city.
Yeah, I wouldn't have knew what that even stood for. But so I went to Forest Hill.
Okay.
Halfway through first grade.
So let's stop for a second. So you started off at H.B. Wilson. Mm-hmm. You're from Fairview. Is H.B. Wilson in Fairview?
I guess that's kind of, I don't know what that is. It's Fairview, kind of Centerville border.
Okay.
So I don't even really know what that's considered, but yeah.
So the kids that go there are the Fairview kids and some of the Centerville kids?
Probably the Centerville kids that's close to the tracks or close to the school.
Okay.
Probably a mix.
Okay.
Well, definitely it's a mix because I remember kids that weren't from Fairview, but
all right.
It was majority Fairview kids. So.
Got it. So your older brother got accepted to the CHIPS program.
Yeah.
So you got to go to that school too.
Yes.
So where is Forest Hill physically?
So Forest Hill is, I want to say, like on a guess, is probably a few miles away.
No, I mean, what neighborhood is it in?
In Parkside section of Camden.
Okay. So totally different neighborhood.
Totally different neighborhood.
Did you guys have to walk? You catch the bus?
Ride with our parents.
Your parents took you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had the parent transportation.
Got it. So what was that like? What was that like going from H.B. Wilson to Forest Hill?
So, I guess obviously that transfer, not knowing people, stuff like that was kind of difficult.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing I remember about that was going to a new school. I already didn't like school. And like if you ever were to talk to my parents, specifically my mom, I hated school.
Why?
It was something about, okay, and this is part of the negative about the growing up in a house like ours.
Okay.
I couldn't understand why the other kids, why everybody else in the classroom couldn't behave.
Huh.
Or why, like people would crack a couple jokes, all right, cool, let's move on. But they would go all day. And then the bullying and my mom actually thought that I was getting bullied in school.
Really?
Like, that's how bad I didn't like school. I just didn't want to go. I used to fake headaches and, all that type of stuff. But it was just, I just didn't like it. Like, I didn't like leaving the house.
So now it was worse that you go to the school with a bunch of kids you don't even know.
Yeah. And I think, and it's funny that kind of made me think of that, but I think that's the first time I really like, oh, I hate this place. I hate school. Because now I don't know anybody. I go in there, and my saving grace was sports.
Okay.
was that I played football on the youth football team
Where the whole city
where the
plays
whole
for
city pretty much plays. So I come in there and kids are like, hey, hey, Shawn. So it kind of helped a little,
Okay.
but it was still too unfamiliar, and it was unfamiliar, but I was already the type of kid who didn't like to leave my comfort zone, my house, my family.
And you're in
So-
a Parkside school where the Parkside kids are really cliquey. Like,
Yeah,
we from
yeah.
Parkside, and
Yeah.
you not.
Yeah, and that wasn't even like a gang thing. That was you already got your own friends. It wasn't like it was like a hood thing, but it wasn't like a street thing.
Right.
It was just the kids with friends. And now, even though I knew you and I played football with you, like I'm not as in with you as your friends who's gonna walk home with you.
Exactly.
So I never personally, and that was just my personality. I never really liked it. Like,
So how long did you last at Forest Hill?
so Forest Hill, I think all of second grade
Okay.
and half of third grade.
Half of third grade.
So third grade, halfway through, I transferred back to H.B. Wilson.
Okay.
So
Was that like a joyous occasion for you?
it was kind of a relief, but I think by the time that, you know what made it was a joyous occasion, and I was back with my friends by this point, probably walking sporadically to school.
Okay.
Because it was usually one of my younger brothers or sisters were in a younger grade to where they couldn't walk, or where my mom still wanted to drop them off, like kindergarten, like first grade.
Right.
So I had rides through most of school, so it wasn't really like I was walking with my friends till I was in like fourth and fifth grade maybe.
Okay.
But I remember when I went back, two of the main things, obviously, coming back to the kids I'm familiar with from my neighborhood, and two, my teacher. I wound up having the same teacher that I did in first grade and third grade.
Man or woman?
Miss Robinson.
Miss Robinson.
Yeah.
Shout out to Miss Robinson.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
So that, I think, and she was a nice teacher.
Okay.
Whereas somehow I hated every teacher at so
So you graduate from H.B. Wilson.
I graduated from H.B. Wilson
And you go where?
to Morgan Village.
Middle school.
Yes.
Okay. How far of a walk was it from your house to H.B. Wilson, by the way?
From H.B. Wilson to my house, you know what, maybe half a mile.
So about what, 15 minutes, 10?
Yeah, like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. Was Morgan Village closer or farther?
Morgan Village was closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
How far of a walk is Morgan Village to your house?
Probably a quarter mile.
So how many in minutes?
In minutes, I could probably get to school, and by then I was testing the minutes. I was, probably like 10 minutes or less.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
you could jump up late and get there, and
Right.
it was
right.
an easy straight walk up the street. Yeah.
How'd you enjoy your Morgan Village experience? Middle school.
Morgan Village, I started to kind of open up a little more, but I still was like,
Sheltered a little bit.
yeah. I think I just didn't really, when it took some getting used to,
Okay.
and then as kids got older, they got meaner,
True.
and it's
Especially
funny.
in middle school.
And I was more of more I can't think of the word
Introverted?
really. Not introvert. I empathized a lot with the kids who got picked on,
Okay.
but it never happened to me. So it was kind of weird. Like, it bothered me to see kids get picked on.
Okay. Now, were you tall? Were you like bigger than most of the kids?
No, I think I was real average size for my age. I don't even remember, honestly.
Okay.
I think I was average size for my age. Like,
right.
like a regular size kid. I was a skinny kid.
But you were from the neighborhood, so everybody knew your family.
Yeah.
So
we
people
didn't
kind
really
of
have
knew
those
not to
issues.
deal with, like,
Yeah,
not to
and
go
I
too
was
far with you.
a quiet, standoffish guy, so I didn't start trouble.
Right.
You always get the occasional, person who you just happen to be the person who was in that spot today, so you're the one who got slapped in the back type thing.
Right.
But it wasn't, it never happened to me, and I'm not gonna say it was because they don't know what would have happened, because there have been other fights, but it made me feel comfortable, and I felt confident just coming out of the house. Like, I'm in there. I got two older brothers who, when we have our scuffles, I'm like, oh, if I'm hanging with them, not really.
Right.
I'm getting tossed, but if I'm good. Like,
So were you ever in a fight in school, like from K through 8? Did you ever shoot anybody a fair one?
it was all like little stuff. I can't even remember reasons why. I remember two.
Okay.
One of them is it's a lot, and it's not really even worth getting into.
Right.
But the other ones was like, little stuff like outside playing. Usually always started with a sport.
Okay.
And,
all sports related stuff.
Yeah. Outside of school, probably a lot more, but they was always family related.
Okay.
So, something happened with little brother, and, the older brother come and say, hey, you got to go handle that. And I'm like, man, that's my friend, but you ain't got no choice.
That's what happens so commonly with the big families in the hood, where it might be 10 of them, but only really 1 or 2 of them know how to fight. The other ones are living off their last name, and everybody knows it. Yeah. Like you're only as tough as the people in your family.
Yeah, like I literally, I literally never really got into no serious fight, and not, I was plenty comfortable.
Right.
But it just, I didn't have to.
So what about academically in middle school? How are you doing?
Academically in middle school, I'm probably I say good, B student, B,
Okay.
C.
Okay.
When I got honor roll, it was honor roll with the 2 C's.
Right.
Always,
The honorable mention.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you graduate Morgan Village.
Yes.
And you go where?
Camden High.
Okay, Camden High School. So that's in
Parkside.
In Parkside as well.
Yes.
And is that your neighborhood school?
No, Parkside is.
No, I mean, is that your neighborhood high school?
Yes.
Right.
That's where everybody from
People,
Fairview pretty much goes.
So you went to high school in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the 90s, it was only really 2 main high schools in Camden, right?
2 main high schools. Actually, my senior year, that's actually a good point. I almost ended up not going to Camden High, but a new high school opened, medical arts high school opened.
Right.
My
8th grade
freshman year.
Right. Exactly.
Going into high school, so that was a new option. And I actually, only reason I really didn't go there is because I thought you couldn't play football. I didn't know you could play for Camden High.
Okay.
And go to medical arts.
Okay.
So that was like the main reason I didn't want to go there. But
so what was your high school experience like?
So high school was pretty cool. I opened up a lot more.
Okay.
Got comfortable. Let down my guard a little more, but I was always a quiet to myself person for the most part. My friends, if they knew me, they would probably think otherwise. I was a jokester. I like to have fun. But if they didn't know me, if they didn't know me, they didn't know me. I probably didn't talk to them.
What sports did you play in high school?
High school, I played football, wrestled, and baseball.
What was your favorite?
Favorite was...
Well, rank them.
So...
What was number 3?
I gotta say baseball.
Baseball.
Which is sad, because it was mainly because the school.
Right.
Camden High made they made baseball back then not really a desirable sport.
Right.
No attention.
Camden High is not a baseball sport.
Yeah, the talent, believe it or not, is there.
Right.
But no, it's never been a focus. So,
Okay.
But I loved baseball growing up. Probably more than football at one point.
Okay. What was your number 2?
Number 2 is a hard one. I gotta say wrestling was number 2. I gotta put football first.
Okay.
Because that's something that, even to this day, I'll jump on an old team with a whole bunch of old people like me and go pull a muscle playing.
Right.
Wrestling, I ain't wrestling around with nobody. My son graduated recently, and rolling around the room with him was the last time, and I never plan on doing it again.
What weight class did you wrestle?
160.
Okay. What position did you play in football?
Safety.
Okay.
Safety.
Okay.
So.
Did you work in high school?
Yes. In high school, I worked at ProDirect. It was a telemarketing company.
Okay.
In Cherry Hill.
What were you pushing people?
What was that? What was it? Credit cards?
Credit cards?
Yeah. I was good. I hated it. It's funny that took me into a lot of other telemarketing jobs.
Really?
Like like when you're young, they were the best paying jobs.
They were paying like $10 an hour.
Yeah. So I worked there. I worked what was it? Courier Post.
Okay.
Out of Collinswood, I sold Colorado Rocky Times or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think what else.
Now, before then, you said you also worked at your dad's frat house.
Yeah, so my first job ever was I think I was the summer, I guess that's called my freshman year, the summer going into high school, I think it was.
Okay.
I was underage to work, and my brother was getting the job.
Okay.
My brother's a year older than me, and you know, whenever he do something, I feel like I can do it. Like, so now I'd have been left home, you know, with younger brother and all the younger siblings, and I'm like, no, I want to go to work too. So I wasn't old enough to work on paper, so my dad paid me, you know, under the table. So
Okay.
the funny part is, I didn't care back then because I had no bills.
Right.
But I think I was making like $80 every 2 weeks. I was making $40 a week doing
Which
the
is
same
huge.
job, which is huge when you
For
got
an
no
eighth grader,
bills.
right.
Oh, I got a surprise thrown at me at the end of the summer though, but no bills. You know, my brother's making his regular, you know, $250 or $300 every 2 weeks. So I'm like, whatever. I'm all right. I don't got no bills, but he would like, you know, we used to walk to work and stuff like that together. So he would usually be the one doing the corner store snacks. But yeah, it was like, you know, that was my first. I've always had like a summer job or something when I was younger.
Okay. So you graduated from Camden High.
Mm-hmm.
What year?
98.
1998. Okay.
1998.
Did you wind up going to college, by the way?
I did go to college.
Where'd you go?
Went to a few. Didn't
Okay.
come out with the paperwork. But I went to William Patterson,
In,
right out of high school in Wayne, New Jersey.
Correct.
Went there for, I want to say maybe just a year.
Okay.
And you know, for goofy reasons left.
Okay.
You know, just immature, just, you know, shouldn't have came home. That school was a good fit for me.
Okay.
I had good friends up there. I had, you know, upperclassmen who were already there, accepting us in. I had the good campus job. I worked in an arcade. Worked in arcade. All I had to do was sit there, study, make money all day, play pool all day, and
You were having too much fun.
and not even really. Like, I was doing it right. I was actually like with the people. I went up there with a couple other Camden High graduates, and we was like, we legit studied. Like, we got bored and we was like, oh, let's go. We go to the library. I'm like, all right. So it just, what is it? Football ended up going. Decided I didn't want to play initially out of high school.
Right.
Started to play there, and went through the whole spring camp, and you know, just getting to know the coach and the team, and starting to, like, you know, fall into college like you should,
Okay.
and just, you know, being a knucklehead, just follow your girlfriend type thing.
Got you.
You know, so she left the school, and I ended up leaving, and I never forget that was one of those parent conversations when, you know, I brought it up, and both my mom and dad was like, nope, stay at the school.
Right.
Brought it up again later, then finally they just give in and like, you know what, whatever. Just go ahead with it. And they support you, whatever. But they knew.
Right.
If I would have listened to them, I probably would have finished.
Okay.
I was on good pace. I was probably doing better than I ever was in school. Like, I had like a 3.7 GPA, 3.6
Oh, wow.
when I left there. I didn't have that in high school.
Right.
Because I didn't, you know, I was doing school. I wasn't playing around. I wasn't like a party guy, nothing like that. We had our fun, but it wasn't, you know, it was nothing that took us away from learning. You know what I mean?
Speaking of high school, let's go back for a second.
Mm-hmm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst ever and 10 being the best possible, how would you personally rate your childhood?
Rate my childhood, I would say an 8.
Okay.
But I will put the fault on me. My childhood, honestly, awesome. But I took some things away from my childhood because I was so closed-mouthed, because I was so, like, passive on everything, and certain things, like, whatever, I would do all over again if I could. Like, I didn't grow up with as many brothers and sisters as I did. Picking the TV channel, picking the kind of cereal you're gonna get, I didn't, like, you can't even ask me, like, oh, what's your favorite TV show? Like, oh, I don't know, I like them all. Like,
Whatever somebody else was watching.
Whatever they was watching, like, you know. And then my dad had things to, like, a hierarchy. The older brothers knew, if I'm in here, I'm picking the channel type thing. So I was cool with that. But it was more along the lines of not speaking up in things that would improve my life. Like, for example, maybe in sports, if I think I should have played this position, or, you know, little stuff like.
If you wanted to play wide receiver, but the coaches put you on the line, you just went on the line.
Yeah, and not even bring it up or not even show them. Like,
so they didn't even know you wanted to play wide receiver.
it was a me thing.
Right.
You know, or like, you know, I had, you know, this is mainly like more, I guess when I was younger, it was, you know, a lot of kids have that. You kind of just follow. When I go out there, I'm assuming the coach is going to put me in the best place, and that's it. Okay. And I just dealt with it. But when you get older, and it's not, you know, we're not talking sports now. We're talking job. We're talking, you know,
right.
You know, young teenager. You got to speak up more for how you think, and I didn't. So it took some fun away. It took, you know, little stuff like, you know, what some people would say is real minor and wouldn't even have took from their childhood. To me,
but it added up.
It added up, and it made a personality. It created a personality that I had to grow back out of or fix.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just being closed, not realizing what you're missing.
Right.
You know?
Like on some real closed mouth don't get fed. You were the closed mouth.
Yeah.
Most of the
time.
Like
a little funny thing, but things, obviously I think of it because I didn't forget. Globetrotters game, and my brothers are probably going to watch this and laugh because they know. Globetrotters game we went to, like we used to go to a lot of that stuff, so it's not like that was my only time to ever go. But when the 4 boys went, it was like I'm getting to hang with, you know, my brothers, and, you know, by this point it was probably 6 of us because I was young. But somehow I ended up not going. Like I think my mom asked, like, "Oh, do you want to stay here and have this?" Like,
okay.
"Oh, we're going to McDonald's." Something like that, and I'm like, and I didn't want to. I just said, yeah, I'll stay and I'll just eat McDonald's.
Right.
I'm like, no. Even then I knew, like, no. Like, we know we going with Dad to Globetrotters. It's going to be better than McDonald's.
Right.
But I just went with the flow.
Okay.
And now I look at pictures and
everybody went to the Globetrotters game except for you.
Yeah, they all posing at the Globetrotters game next to the bus, and I'm like, oh, I'm here eating, you know, nuggets like this. Like we don't live around the corner from McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, but so like that's a really, you know, minor thing, but that's an example of how those little things.
That's interesting because like your childhood, according to you, is an 8, and you didn't make it a 9 or a 10 because of your own personal stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been better if I would have spoke up about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, individually, one of those things might be minor, but it was so many of those things that just added up that changed me into this person that I was at the time that I didn't even like who I was.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So with that being said, do you have a worst childhood day or time period that you would like to forever forget?
A worst childhood day or time period. So, my worst childhood day, I could probably, you know, if I really sat and really thought about it, I could probably think of some deeper, but right off the bat, like, you know, because we're already in that subject and talked about it, but like I remember sports.
Okay. Like
that was like my life pretty much when I was younger. That's how I identified with my friends. That's how I made new friends.
Okay.
Pickup game, blah blah blah. You know, oh, Shawn can play. So, I'm now at I'm now in the 8th grade, my final year of youth football. I played with the Centerville Simbas all through, you know, youth, and now I'm on my dad's team. Okay. But I fooled around that summer going into my dad's team. I was supposed to make weight for the team down because I was skinny. Okay. I think it was like the 120. So I was like 120. I missed it by 2 pounds. I was 122. Okay. And long story short, I ended up going to my dad's team, but after they had their starting spots, they established everything. So now I'm coming up there, and it's like I got to get on the team, and I wasn't used to that. I was used to being a starter. I was used to playing. So we go through the practices, and I'm not getting the reps, not really fitting in, not getting in any position I want to be in, and then the worst childhood day came when I think it might have been our first or second game. I know it was like a tough game because it was like the Blackhawks in Philly and on the turf field. I'll never forget. And I set the bench the whole game.
Oh, wow.
That was the first time in my life. And
that's weird to hear any kid say that. The coach's son didn't play.
Yeah, like, and it made me question, like, dang, like, I can't even get like one play. So that was probably my
Right.
like, not even special teams.
Not even special teams.
That was probably my worst childhood day. And then, like, it was funny is the ride home. Like, I could tell, like, even, like, my dad will bring it up now, like, dang, like, that game, I messed up, I can't even believe, like, but back then it was, like, that was the worst, like, that's all I really had, that was how I identified with, my friends, and then, like, dang, like, I can't sit the bench. So I eventually ended up getting playing time and getting on the field, but I felt like I never, like, caught up from that. I never, in sports or in football, like, that's gonna sound deep. That's not.
Nah,
really.
sports was your life. So some people had this dramatic story, right? Like, you're like, damn, that's dramatic. Where yours to other people might not seem that dramatic, but sports was your world.
Yeah.
And you used to be the star, the big man on campus, and now all of a sudden you're playing for your dad, and you don't play in probably the biggest game of the season.
Yeah. So it's like
I can see how that could be a heartbreaker.
And it was rough. Like, I remember it. But what was funny is coming home, and this is how I knew. And I was young, but I consciously remember thinking, like, I know my dad feels bad because normally, like, it's some type of talk or something, and I could just tell his demeanor when we ride home. And we went to Raleigh's, the burger spot,
right?
That's in, like, Fairview across from, like, the Pathmark. And not only did, like, we stopped at Raleigh's on the way home. That's not a big deal. We did fast food a lot, but he offered me. He's like. He offered me to change or something like something weird that I knew kind of like was like he didn't know, like I could tell it wasn't just me who felt like dang, something went wrong. So like now as an adult it stuff like that makes you
right.
It's like, oh, I make sure if I go somewhere, I'm gonna make sure I get heard or make sure I get, and that's another one of those closed mouth
don't get fed type of. Right.
I could have spoke up, and somebody would have probably noticed, like, oh, because like
they caught up in the game.
A tough game like that, and you're not working guys in. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I didn't think I was the guy you had to work in, but like
that was one of those life lessons you learned early.
Yeah.
Okay, let's flip it. Do you have a favorite childhood day or time period that you would like to go back to if you could?
Favorite childhood time period easily is when I was younger. Well, sad part is I'd be cutting out some of my younger brothers and sisters, but unfortunately, my childhood, it's too many of us, and somebody's getting cut in every point of it.
Right.
But I remember, like, in particular, the one that sticks out, we met, like, my uncle, my cousins, and everybody in Atlantic City.
Okay.
Ate somewhere, ate dinner or whatever, or hung out. I don't know what we did. Went to the beach.
Okay.
Then went to my grandpa's house, had like a family barbecue. Like the family, that in combination with other family, like my family and extended family events.
Okay.
Like they always stick out. Like.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got
but my family, like, pretty much any getaway we had, like, was sticks out to me. We did a lot of driving and a lot of family car rides, and you never get tired of them. So they like made my childhood.
Speaking of which, so now that you're an adult, the man that you are today, the man you feel you became, what's your overall perception of how your childhood affected your life? Do you feel like your childhood has affected the person you are today?
Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, from what I was just saying, certain things I I consciously make sure if I don't agree with something, I speak up. Or I'll make sure my point of view is out there, even if it's, sometimes it's like, because now you got to make sure you're not like, is that too much? Do I really need to? Because when you got that weakness where I wasn't speaking up before, now it's like, I don't want to be too loud about stuff that's unimportant. But now I make sure I think about every situation and do I want to do this? If I don't want to do it, I don't. If I want to, if I think my role should be different. But it's not like, now we're talking work. Now we're talking our, careers and even dealing with friends and stuff like that. So it's different, but it makes you, it made me take that stance. Like, I'm a lot more open just because, like I said, I think me being so closed, so sheltered to myself or to my family, really, because my family would never think I was quiet or sheltered or because I was loud and crazy and whatever at home. But now I think I'm more myself.
Okay.
I go anywhere. Like now I'm comfortable with myself. Like everything. Like losing hair. Got bald spots here. That, like nothing bothers me. Like I don't spend money on elaborate nothing. I'm comfortable with myself.
Okay.
And I think that has a lot to do with me just growing up a certain way and number one, never being in that position where that's all I'm thinking or worrying about or the material things, but also just, overall, being comfortable with speaking up and or saying something or making a joke or a comment, and if people don't like it, it's funny to me, I'm gonna still get my laugh. Like, that type thing. Like I'm so more open. I walk in and I speak to people, not just for the hey, how you doing? Like, conversation.
Okay.
Like with now I'm more comfortable. I don't even think about it now.
Even with the parenting, you said how you like somewhat tried to mimic your parents with the parenting.
Yeah.
So even with like being a husband, how you watch how your dad treated your mom growing up. You saw how a man was supposed to like run the house and how a woman was supposed to run the house.
Yeah.
Even in the parenting, you mentioned that you tried to mimic your parents, or you tried to mimic your parents, even with your wife.
Yeah, like definitely. So, what's funny is, everything.
How long you been married, by the way?
11 years.
Okay. Congratulations on that. Shout out to your wife.
Do the math real quick.
Shout out to your wife.
Trouble. Yeah. So yeah, mimicking my parents doesn't always mean doing exactly like mimicking them. The things that I take out and at work, but like my mom and dad were from a different time.
Right.
Different scenario.
So you
different
mimic
amount
them
of kids.
in spirit.
So I mimic them in the things that apply.
Okay.
Like me and my wife both work.
Right.
So my dad, like I'm sure my dad cooked for us. I can think of some meals, but it's not like, he wasn't the cooker.
Right.
I can think all the time, like between the barbecues and, if my mom, later, like when my mom had a job or was doing something, he would make something. I remember, like, I don't know. I don't even want to try and guess no meals and be wrong. But that wasn't his, like, his thing.
Right.
And really it made sense because he's at work all day. You don't want to come home and then get that stuff started. My mom is already home. Of course she's going to start cooking.
Right.
Not because she's the woman, but because she's already home.
Right.
Like, we would come home from school and the house is already settled and ready for us to walk in. And
that was the dynamic of your house.
That was the dynamic, and I think that had a lot to do with, they kept a structure that we were like, accustomed to. My mom or dad was always home when I got home. Like, it wasn't no foolishness. Like, I couldn't bring no knucklehead friends or no, bringing no girls to the house that they didn't approve of, and, bring no stolen nothing. Right. I remember I bought a bike off my friend, and my dad asked me for paperwork. And I'm like, he made me write out the paperwork, write out a receipt, and put the whatever the serial number, and number one, like I know the bike was stolen. Most likely, wasn't too many of our friends. You knew which friends whose parents was going to the store and buying bikes.
Right.
Let me just say it like that. But the point was like you can't just bring it in our house because they'd be like, "What's that?" They was there,
Right.
their presence. So that's what I try to make sure. Like, but our house is different, so we both work. So if I'm home, like right now, I'm doing this remote thing. I'm home more often than
she is.
my wife.
Right.
So I would try to do the cooking. And I would try to, I went through a whole phase of it. Let me say that. I'm not going to act like it was working. Because it also got to a point that now where it's just, we probably eat out more than ever because we both are busy.
Okay.
We've considered a housekeeper because we're both busy. So it's not the same roles that my parents had.
Okay.
It just don't work because we both, provide, we both go out all day and come in tired,
Different day, different time, different situation.
Yeah, but as far as the treatment, the respect, I try to stay with those things. Like my parents, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen them in an actual argument.
Okay.
One crippled hand. Like I don't,
Right.
it's rare. And when I was younger, I don't remember. It's not something that I never had to go to sleep to my parents arguing type thing.
Got it.
So my kids, I really try to make sure those healthy things, I stay up with. But other than that,
Give some advice to blank-year-old Shawn. So if you can talk to a younger version of yourself, what age would he be, and what would you say to him?
blank-year-old Shawn, I guess, I would probably go back, I guess. Well, the easy, I'm gonna leave the teenager, thought he was grown, making stupid adult decisions, Shawn alone. He figured those out, but
Right.
I'll go back further, just to a little younger me, probably like, middle school.
All right, so 13-year-old Shawn or 12-year-old Shawn.
Just be confident.
Okay.
Be you. Be confident. Like that's one thing. I've always been able to be me. I never got into trying to talk and act and dress and be like other people. But I've also realized like part of my standoffishness was my confidence that I'll be accepted. That my part of my taking sports a certain way was I don't want to fail, so I'm not going to go. So be confident, and that taking me into high school would have made me a whole different person. Not only in athletics but in classwork. Like I remember some classes it just looked intimidating because what people told me, and then right off the bat you're dealing with a tough class. Where in reality, I sit down now and stuff that I don't know, I take the challenge, and it's like, oh, my brain works. Like, I figured this out. I figured it out that easy. That wasn't nothing. But just more confidence. Like, don't worry so much. Just jump in and be open about everything and have fun. Most importantly, have fun and be confident.
I know that's right. Shawn, we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.